Mr. Randolph Tan.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I support the motion. One of the first things our workforce of the future would have to be prepared for is the increasing differentiation in job roles and, as a consequence, also the skill sets that these roles will demand. Singapore's early success with employment growth had been founded on the same principle that other industrialized economies adopted, with mass creation of jobs to support large-scale manufacturing. As the President's address indicated, the future of work will be very different. Unlike many other economies, however, Singapore had managed to sustain the early approach by recognizing quite early on that a much more sophisticated labour market model would be required as global economic competition intensified. Hence, instead of differentiating industries, therefore, economic planners had the foresight to push for the workforce to graduate into higher value-added activities. As the population's income rose, the workforce as a whole embraced higher skilled jobs, including moving much more quickly into knowledge work than other economies which had started out in a similar way. What we face now in Singapore is in some ways the problems of having been too successful too quickly. With a workforce for which the proportion of degree holders is increasing rapidly, we now have an increasing proportion of PMEs and, as a result, of knowledge workers as well. Knowledge workers are subject to the same laws of demand and supply that all other resources must adhere to. And an excess of knowledge workers of the same type in any one area that is unsupported by demand will see the labour market prospects of that group dwindle. As an advanced economy, Singapore faces the same insatiable thirst for top manpower in a broad array of fields as other advanced economies. But the limited size of our population is such that the availability of skills it can supply will always fall short of the breadth being demanded by companies competing at the cutting edge of global competition. In other words, I strongly believe what Singapore faces quite uniquely among advanced economies is not so much a problem with skills gaps, but more one of insufficient skills coverage. To deal with this, the core principles which had guided early planners to their success remain relevant today. And that is to prepare early for the inevitable, to make difficult decisions to match seemingly impossible and incompatible objectives, and most importantly, to do so with a clear understanding of how much is at stake. Sir, all advanced economies face the same challenges that we face in trying to keep up with the rapidly changing manpower needs of their economies. And many have already begun to recognize that the solution lies in preparing and revisiting the skills adequacy of their workforce so that it keeps up with the evolving demands of global economic competition. In order to improve their preparedness, advanced economies regularly make projections about their skills needs. By appropriately harnessing the technology that is available today, a picture of where skills deficits lay can be obtained, which, no matter how imperfect, gives the modern advanced workforce a good sense of what the skills landscape would look like in the near future. For Singapore especially, where the twin challenges of manpower shortages and skills deficits are never far from our minds, mapping the landscape of available skills will provide policymakers with an informed start to addressing the skills challenges of tomorrow. Hence, I agree strongly with the characterization that Minister Heng Swee Keat offered last week of the situation we are in, when he pointed out in his media interview that the solution to the problem we face should also be contained in the very technology which is causing the disruptive challenges. In short, sir, I believe that the crux of whether the ongoing industry transformation efforts I beg your pardon, sir. In short, I believe that the crux of the ongoing industry transformation efforts is workforce skills. The imperative for the workforce is to keep as much ahead of the curve as possible against the competition by leaving them in no doubt that even if tomorrow's jobs have yet to be created, the Singapore workforce of today is prepared to be the first off the mark to acquire the necessary skills to fill them. Despite the scale of the challenge, there is room for cautious optimism. The Skills Future movement is providing a much-needed focus on the skills issues. As the information in the skills frameworks are augmented, understanding that individual workers have not just of the challenges that confront them in skills acquisition, but the opportunities that are open to all of us in the skills landscape should begin to crystallize. Even though the Ministry of Education is where it is the one coordinating all these efforts through Skills Future Singapore, all government ministries and agencies have a role to play in this, and I would urge each and every one to accept the role the skills endeavour has trusted upon them as leaders in all areas of skills development. The roles of ministries such as the MOM, MTI, MCI, MOF, and agencies such as MAS and NRF are clear. But it must go beyond these natural lead agencies to include all others who have influence over shaping work attitudes and therefore work ethics. Here I would like to talk about a role that may not be as clear but certainly no less direct, and that is the one that is played by MINDEF and the SAF in leading the impressionable young minds in 21st century skills mastery and leadership. Skills training in many ways is part of what an organization like MINDEF, invested with heavy responsibility for shaping young lives, must dedicate itself to in order to stay relevant. As a small country painfully aware of our natural limitations, there should therefore be no self-imposed limits to asserting the priority of progressive thinking about the need to pursue continuing skills improvements. And this must naturally therefore begin with a 21st century military that should go beyond the call of duty in the pursuit of individual skills proficiency. In conclusion, sir, I would like to emphasize the need to ensure that equality of opportunity is something that every Singapore citizen continues to have confidence in. Although income inequality is a legitimate concern, I would argue that we should focus on it not to the exclusion of the much more fundamental need to ensure equality of opportunity. Singapore has strong and reliable institutions which provide opportunities for all segments of society to access basic social and municipal services, not to mention opportunities for social mobility. Equality of opportunity benefits everyone in the long term because it strengthens the social fabric and provides a sustainable basis for each and every generation to pursue prosperity and individual fulfillment. Ultimately, better equality of opportunity should reduce income inequality in the long run, but it cannot be something that can be done in a rush. Singapore has grown from strength to strength over more than 50 years because of focus on equality of opportunity when it comes to jobs in particular. It is important to refresh and rejuvenate these efforts in the current industry transformation push and to continue to emphasize equality of opportunity in acquiring skills at every stage of our citizens' lives, regardless of whether it is in the schools, in national service, in the workforce, in re-employment, or even as a non-working member of society. There is almost no doubt that the days of mass job creation are over. We need to create a much more differentiated workforce, one that can confront, even if not completely overcome, the challenges of the coming of inadequate skills coverage. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support the motion.